I'd been studying bunnies non-stop. I was hopping all over the internet, searching high and low and learning everything I could. But I still didn't feel ready. I didn't want to admit it, but I needed help. Someone on the outside. A real bunny expert. Someone who knows what it means to feel very bunny. And that's when it hit me. Do you want to rate FNAF rabbits with me? Happy Bunny Month finale, everybody! Today, Candy Bunny and I will be going through every rabbit character in the FNAF franchise and giving them an official, completely objective, and scientific rating. As two definitive leaders in the world of bunny research, we are undeniably the most qualified individuals to make these assessments. We'll be grading each rabbit on 4 key areas: aesthetics, lore, star quality, and overall vibes. For aesthetics, we'll be looking at the overall physical presentation of the bunny. Lore refers to how relevant and/or interesting a specific rabbit is to the FNAF franchise. Star quality is all about how well the character would perform in an animatronic-driven attraction. And vibes are genuinely just how we would react to being in the same room as them. What vibes are they gonna give off? Would we avoid them or gravitate towards them? We'll score each rabbit on a scale of 0 to 10 in all 4 categories, add those for 2 totals, and then take the average for our final score. Now before we get started, I want to set some ground rules. First, we will only be rating in-game rabbits for this video. No sea bonnies. And second, wearing rabbit ears or a rabbit mask does not a rabbit make. Only fully suited rabbits are making the cut for this one. My personal apologies to all of the Maskbot and Bonnie Bro stands out there. Candy and I will be passing the proverbial mic back and forth as this goes on, so sit back, keep your arms and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and enjoy the ride. It's time to get very bunny. He's the original, the blueprint, or vaguely indigo print. Either way, Bonnie is our beloved first FNAF bunny. Aesthetically, it's hard not to rank him highly since he would lay the groundwork for every iteration to come. He's also just a perfect representation of what an 80s animatronic rabbit would look like. He has a rockin' electric guitar, and I love his purple eyes and ambiguous fur color, so he gets a solid 8 out of 10.
And lore. Of course, the original FNAF game and therefore the original characters really kicked off the story of the whole franchise, so you might think that we'd have another high ranking here. But Bonnie as a character doesn't get much lore to speak of. With the gift of retrospect, original Chica and Golden Freddy have the lore spotlight. Bonnie never really got that big mystery or story moment. Jeremy, who possesses him, gets no characterization, and as Not Real Name Not At All points out in her Bonnie video, the Bunny of classic FNAF isn't Bonnie, but Spring Bonnie. So Nervous and I agreed on a 6, until I remembered that in the trailer, OG Bonnie levitates, so I gave him an extra 0.5 for potential powers of flight. Now how about star quality? How would classic Bonnie do in a pizzeria? In my opinion, fantastic. The week before, my favorite book of all time confirmed that the FNAF 1 designs were the original designs of the MCI 1985 Pizzeria, the most popular FNAF location until the Pizzaplex. Original Bonnie killed it on stage, and so I'm giving him a 10 out of 10.
Now for vibes. Bonnie is inviting. He's got friendly eyes and clear interests. I could definitely see myself hanging out with him for a while. His depiction in the movie is also particularly endearing, painting him as a bit of a klutz. He is, however, still a bit creepy, and a guy with a guitar can always go one of 2 ways, so 6 points. Bonnie is really setting the standards here as our first rabbit with 29.25 out of 40 points.
If you loved the first Bonnie, then you're sure to absolutely adore his latest iteration in FNAF 2, Withered Bonnie. Oh wait, shoot, it's just Toy Bonnie. Alright, you know what, for all the hate that I'm about to give this self-absorbed little weirdo, the design of the toys could be a little questionable and lackluster, but Toy Bonnie really shone against his bandmates. He really committed to the blue, and I love this bright color on him. It's weird that Scott didn't reuse this cyan shade for 9 more years until Glamrock Bonnie and Ruin. Toy Bonnie's eyes really sold me on the aesthetics. The way the pupils expand and shrink, maybe the FNAF VHS series is playing a little into this decision, but in my opinion, and that of my esteemed colleague, Toy Bonnie deserves an 8 for his good looks. But don't get too comfortable, his stats are on a steep, downward slope from here on out. Let's go to lore. The lore of the toys is basically just that they were made with a security system, and there's a little mystery around a potential DCI or KCI, which is a fun mystery to muse about, but not a very essential story beat. Of the toys, Mangle is the lore-heavy one. But Toy Bonnie does once again come out ahead of his other bandmates solely because of this image that clued us into the fact that the toys have been made with parts from the Withereds. 5.5 out of 10. Star quality? Look. I can see kids liking this guy. He's not offensive to look at or to smell like the FNAF ones, but the FNAF 2 location was one of the least successful locations that we know about. At least FNAF 1 managed to stay open a while. Toy Bonnie didn't get a chance to shine, and he wasn't worth bringing back or even harkening back to in any other iteration of the band. Lower mid, 4 out of 10. And vibes? How would hanging out with this guy be if you happened upon him at the party?
Now I'm a superstar.
I guess he's okay.
It's not my fault I'm so much more famous than you.
2 out of 10. Get this guy out of here. FNAF 2's Bonnies are not all wannabe losers. In fact, I'd say Toy Bonnie should face the facts. He's always destined to be number 2 to Withered Bonnie.
For some reason, removing the top half of Bonnie's face is an instant aesthetic upgrade. Withered Bonnie is such a cool animatronic. The glowing red eyes, the asymmetrical withering, the way he cocks his head to one side. This rabbit has the X factor. Perfect score for Withered Bonnie in aesthetics, 10 out of 10. And lore-wise, all the Withereds are important because of their association with the MCI, similarly to the OG Bonnie. So he gets points for that alone. However, in addition, Withered Bonnie's role in Ultimate Custom Night bumps him up above OG Bonnie.
That's right, fellow Bunny scholar. Withered Bonnie is the character in UCN who clues us into the fact that it's not just the vengeful spirit and William trapped in the cycle of vengeance. And not only does he deliver the absolutely chilling line, but he sounds really cool while doing it.
What is this prison? Is it me trapped or is it you? Perhaps it's us both.
Finally, on the lore, the Withereds are the earliest instance of transferring hauntedness because they pass it on to the toys. 7 out of 10 for lore from us both.
Moving on to star quality, we both had a slightly different thought process.
Alright, if we're putting this man on stage, the children are running away screaming. He might have a little memeability from middle schoolers for having the toilet face, but you couldn't pay a pizzeria manager to put this guy in front of kids. I'm tempted to give a 0, but at least this guy still somewhat resembles an animatronic, so a 1 instead.
While you make a good argument, I have to give Withered Bonnie a couple extra points just because I think he'd absolutely kill in a horror attraction. Hopefully not literally. He has such a memorable look to him that though he may not have a ton of staying power, he'd be a scene in a haunted house you'd be talking about afterwards. Vibes-wise, Withered is an easy 10 out of 10.
Withered Bonnie canonically has a great sense of humor. His UCN lines are just a bunch of puns about missing his face. He's like that friend that has a lot of trauma but's like funny about it.
And sure, he's creepy, but what's he gonna do? Bite me with only his lower jaw? Grab me with his one arm? Honestly, it doesn't matter. I'm too intrigued. His voice is so easy to listen to, and I'm certain he has a lot of interesting stories. With an average score of 29, Withered Bonnie is sitting comfortably and very closely in second place behind the original Bonnie. And if he wasn't mysterious enough, FNAF 2 has one more rabbit that is such a mystery, he's only seen in the shadows.
Did I say Toy Bonnie was coming in second to Withered Bonnie in the ranking of FNAF 2 bunnies? Well, I only said that because I was hoping you'd forget the spookiest bunny of FNAF 2. Give it up for the shadowy entity of your nightmares! RWQFSFASXC! Canonically, you have to say it shouting because his name is in all caps. Shadow Bonnie has it all. Aesthetics, lore, vibes. What could be more aesthetic than being a shadowy outline of Toy Bonnie with human teeth? Not to mention the way he's positioned in your office just sends the spook factor through the roof. But you know, He also exists as a glitching entity in arcade games, so I would give him a 10 out of 10, but this little purple gremlin, though still cool, isn't as cool as the physical world entity. 9 out of 10. How about lore? Look. His it's not concrete, but I love Shadow Bonnie's lore. Some of the unsolvable mysteries in FNAF are really irritating. Midnight Motorist makes no sense and I don't ever want to think about it. But Shadow Bonnie, on the other hand, makes no sense and all I want to do is think about it. I love every theory about the Shadow animatronics. 8 out of 10 for being so vague in a way that just makes you want to theorize. Alright, he's not perfect. He might do pretty well as a jump scare in Nervous's haunted house, but he's not in a haunted house. He's in an arcade game and sometimes in your walls. If I saw him in either place, I would sue the establishment. 1 out of 10 for Nervous's haunted house, but only 0.5 out of 10 for Candy's Pizzeria, and only because he's so shadowy that he might be able to go unnoticed by the poor patrons. But the vibes, the absolute vibes on this man. Look, if you don't think RWQ is a 10 out of 10, then you don't know bunny science like I do. I'm going to the party just to meet him. All my homies love RWQ. RWQ turns a lame, regular party into the coolest party in town, and all he has to do is stand in the corner ominously. But even the quiet, mysterious anime side character vibes of Shadow Bonnie may not be able to save the party if our next bunny shows up. Springtrap.
I would consider Springtrap to be the rabbit of FNAF. Surely not the first introduced, but he is, in essence, the reason we talk about any of the others. He is also the first non-Bonnie rabbit on our list. Of course, it is highly likely that in the days of Fredbear's Family Diner, he was the original Bonnie suit, but considering Springtrap a variation of Bonnie, this guy, it feels sacrilegious. Springtrap is a being all his own. Aesthetically, Springtrap's design isn't cute and it isn't in-your-face scary, but it is organic in an unsettling way. Unfortunately, I do think he suffers from looking a little manufactured. There is a limitation to what you can do in the signature FNAF style, but particularly his chest looks less rotted and more cut to appear that way. That all said, he is still unsettling as he's designed to be, and though he's gotten flack over the years for some of his jump scares in FNAF 3, I still think contextually the way he shambles around in that haunted attraction is genuinely creepy. Seeing an animatronic, something you think should be moving robotically, move around like a human in a suit? Ugh. And despite what anyone says, he has successfully cemented himself as an iconic horror character. So, 6 points. The next category is a no-brainer. You can't have FNAF lore without Springtrap. He is the man behind the slaughter, responsible for nearly every death in the games and for creating the Scooper and the Funtime animatronics. As long as we're talking about FNAF's mysteries, this bunny's grubby fingerprints are going to show up somewhere. 10 out of 10. Star quality operates under much of the same principles. While objectively, this stinky rabbit wouldn't make it in a pizzeria, he is canonically the star of Fazbear Frights. You won't forget his face. Or his smell. He is docked points, however, for being an actual murderer, so 8 out of 10 seems fair to us. As for his vibes, Springtrap is not someone I'd feel comfortable being anywhere near, especially alone. He's a rotting corpse with an utterly abysmal personality. He does, however, get a single point for having a sick voice. Thank you, PJ Haywood. I would potentially listen to his podcast, or an episode of Conversations with a Killer. Despite those shortcomings, Springtrap ends with a total of 25. Not bad at all. But speaking of bad, Nightmare is right. 10 Things I Hate About You wouldn't even begin to cover it with this guy. While Scary Freaky Creature is the name of the game with this group of animatronics, Nightmare Bonnie just does not work for me on any level. Would he scare me in a game? Obviously, but look at me playing FNAF. Oh, I can't deal with it, I can't deal with it. Ah! How am I supposed to handle this? I am literally too scared to function. But sure, seeing him in short spurts in the shadows is not as bad as looking at him dead on. But we're doing objective research here and we have to take everything into account. The fact is, his proportions are bizarre. I hate his huge jaw, his bulgy eyes, and the way he looks like some gym bro that's definitely gonna stare at me the entire time I'm doing my set. Candy and I agree that he gets 3 points for his jump scare and not being so goofy he isn't scary at all. Lore-wise, Nightmare Bonnie gets 2 points because, well, he is a nightmare animatronic, and there is a healthy amount of mystery surrounding the gameplay of FNAF 4, and whether it's literal nightmares, fear experiments, or some strange mixture of the two. However, none of that is specific to Bonnie. And this is actually where points for this guy abruptly end. He has absolutely 0 star quality due to the fact that he's probably just an illusion, and in my opinion would never be chosen for a pizzeria or be able to hold his own in a horror attraction. And his vibes are horrid. If I saw this dude, I would run the other way. Like I already said, he's got some weird dude bro energy. Plus, if there's illusion discs involved, he is gonna give me a migraine. This unfortunate rabbit scored the absolute lowest on our list with a final total of 5 points. I will say, while Nightmare Bonnie has a whole host of issues, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But first, we have to talk about the other rabbit from FNAF 4. Candy, why don't you take this one?
Look, listen. He's a little guy sitting on a chair. I mean, just look at him. He's so stupid. I love him. Try as I might to convince my fellow scholars that this guy sitting on a chair deserves more aesthetic points for just being so silly. We agreed to disagree with a 4 from Nervous and a 6 from Candy. Please tell me in the comments I'm not crazy. He's just so silly on the chair. But the lore is not silly. Lore is serious. And the lore of the Breaker Room map is extremely serious because it changes everything. If only I knew what that everything was. Aside from how he got so silly, that's the only real lore PlushTrap has to offer. 2 out of 10. Star quality? Alright, I'll admit, he's ugly, but we've had some downright dangerous and nefarious bunnies recently. PlushTrap is a doll, so his star quality will be ranked on his sales and marketability. He's pretty creepy looking. Dolls in his condition probably aren't flying off the shelves, but there is a market for creepy dolls. My best friend in real life owns not 1, not 2, but 3, and I just had to help unpack them. I might be cursed, but that's fine. What was I saying? Oh yeah, PlushTrap sales. Well, we know of 1 canonical PlushTrap doll in-universe, and this girl seems to be happy enough with her purchase. So Nervous will give him a 4, and I'll give him a very generous 5. Vibes. Look, if there's a chair in the hallway, I am inviting him to the party. He's harmless. Okay, well, no, he'll try to bite you. This is a 5-year-old child whose parents need to take him to an ADHD screening. He's entertaining at the parties, but absolutely exhausting to babysit one-on-one. If he's at the party, it's cool. If he's the only one at the party, suddenly I think I left my stove on. Haha, I gotta go home. 6.5 out of 10. Overall, this little weirdo is getting an average of 17.
All right. If you think it's getting hot in here, that's because our next bunny is on fire. Literally. This is the premier diva of FNAF 4 rabbits. Jacko Bonnie was a part of FNAF 4's Halloween update, and what an addition he is. Personally, I believe this hot hair fixes every single issue I have with the original Nightmare Bonnie. The creeper eyes are gone, the peaks of light through his withered suit keep me from paying too much attention to his proportions, and even his glowing teeth add some interest to his design and take my eyes away from his prominent chin. Candy and I both agree on an 8 out of 10 score for aesthetics. If looks could make the rabbit, he'd be in my top 3. But this is science, and we need to take in every aspect of this Pumpkin King. Unfortunately, Jacko Bonnie just can't score high in the lore department. He's basically a Halloween skin and wasn't even canon in the game that he was introduced in. The most we could do is speculate that his seasonal vibes play into the Fall Fest fire in some way. He gets a 1 for potential. Star quality is a hard one too. Jacko Bonnie isn't going to have a year-round relevance with his seasonal appeal, but lucky for him, Halloween is a popular commercial holiday. While no pizzeria would dare to keep this fire hazard around, except I guess as an oven, I think he'd make a great addition to a haunted house with his frightening appearance and memorable pyrotechnics. However, keeping in mind that he is actually on fire, I can't imagine he'd be a long-standing attraction anywhere. A 4 out of 10 seems more than fair. On to vibes. Jacko Bonnie has an air of mystery about him, and again, the fire makes him interesting enough that you'd probably be excited to meet him, assuming he wasn't in an aggressive mood. He could also keep you warm on a cool night. That being said, he would not be much of a conversationalist and would be more of a guy you'd say hi to at a party, exchanging understanding glances before mingling in with another crowd. But if you just need a quiet guy to keep you warm and entertained, he's definitely a good fit. The vibes are a solid 6 out of 10 for us. Candy and I agreed on every aspect here, bringing both of our totals to an odd but appropriate 19 out of a possible 40. It's not the highest number on our list, but for a DLC character, it's pretty impressive. Chronologically, our next game is FNAF World, with a total of 9 adventure bunnies to rate. However, these guys don't fit very cleanly into our rating system, and they're mostly just cute versions of characters we've already rated. Luckily, fellow woman in STEM Candy Bunny has come up with a solution.
That's right, we're gonna rapid fire through the adventure bunnies and give them a flat rating out of 10. We took into consideration appearance, loading screen tips, moves, and animation. Number 1, Adventure Bonnie is looking more blue than ever as he takes on Anim Dude with a casual strum of his guitar. He's an intro character, which means he's quickly outclassed as you unlock more characters. His loading screen tip just says, "Jammin'," which he sure is. He's cute enough, but pretty nondescript. 6 out of 10. Number 2, Adventure Toy Bonnie is almost the exact same as Adventure Bonnie. I don't like his moves much. He's got a cute little foot tapping animation. His loading screen tip, "Something New," harkens back to the beloved Something Borrowed Something New FNAF 2 poster, but he's not nearly as endearing as Adventure Bonnie, or as handsome as Real Toy Bonnie. 4 out of 10. Number 3, Adventure Withered Bonnie. Look at his little clawing animation. His design remains peak, especially with his loading screen image that reads, "Look into my eye." With Pizza Wheel and Unscrew 2 in his moveset, and I am very partial to running the Unscrew crew, Adventure Withered Bonnie shines once again with a 9 out of 10. Number 4, Adventure Nightmare Bonnie. FNAF World really did a lot for this guy's design. Who knew that making a nightmare animatronic cuter would be an upgrade? Nothing crazy with the animations, and the loading screen tip, "Let's Get Mean," is very forgettable. Decent moveset, and alright mid-game character for sure. 5.5 out of 10. Number 5, Adventure PlushTrap. This little guy in the chair. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the same spot in my heart as the real deal. Why is he looking at me like that? I think bad pizza is an alright attack. His loading message is, "Because the world needed a plush version." Just 4 out of 10. Number 6, Adventure Springtrap. Cuter in person, still a killer. I beg to differ. This guy's definitely not cuter in person. I do not want the real Springtrap at my party ever. His attacks are good if you can ever manage to find the character. His animations are totally mid, and he looks more like PlushTrap than Adventure PlushTrap. What's up with that? 4 out of 10. Number 7, Adventure RWQFSFXC is absolutely working for his spot in the corner of your eye and the center of your heart. Look how much zeal he puts into his idle animation. Go spooky Rockstar. And it only gets better. A joke in the loading screen tip, "Say my name," the most terrifying character icon ever, gift boxes and Mimic Ball in his moveset, and I mean, just look at that attack animation. 10 out of 10. RWQ is not only the best adventure bunny, but maybe the best adventure character in all of FNAF World. Number 8, Adventure Spring Bonnie. There's a lot to like here, especially because this is the earliest in-game depiction of a functional Spring Bonnie, even if it's a cute adventure version. It's interesting that Spring Bonnie has not only Toy Bonnie's green eyes, but also his long lashes. I've never found Adventure Spring Bonnie naturally in-game, but his moveset are pretty great if you do happen to find him. I love the idle animation. I love the Spring Bonnie mask on the Spring Lock move. His loading screen tip is male, female, who cares? It's a rabbit. Despite this, I only ever really hear people call Spring Bonnie a male. 8 out of 10. Number 9, finally, Adventure Jacko Bonnie is the Halloween character. Loading screen tip, not canon still here, it's whatever. Design is, he kinda looks like melting chocolate. Animation is whack, but his movesets are absolutely busted. 7 out of 10. Leading to our final ranking, in third is the never encountered Spring Bonnie, in second is our darling Withered Bonnie, and in first, according to objective science, and not just my opinion, is RWQFSFASXC. We hope you've enjoyed ranking small cute little guys because we're back onto the terror train with Bon and Bonnet. Our codependent little puppets. They're little cuties. Little guys are cute. Puppets are cute. Bonkabon is fun, but not much to say, to be honest. 6 out of 10 for aesthetics. Lore? I mean, they're adjacent to lore. The Fun Times have lore, but all Bon really has is a little blurb of text in the sister location blueprints. 2 out of 10. Star quality. I think the Fun Times are really cool animatronics in general. I would love to have them at my party. Wait, no. Wait, take away the murder and then I'd love to have them at my party. And I think Funtime Freddy and Bon Bon really would have killed. And Bonka Bon is just a lot of fun. 7 out of 10. Vibes. Do I want this guy at my party? Look, I do. I'd love to see either Bon Bon or Bonnet at a party. It's just that ever since they started hanging around Funtime Freddy, they don't go anywhere without him. Even if he's not on the invite, he's showing up. Is it worth bringing the Bonds around and putting up with Funtime Freddy? No. Do I wish I could invite them and they'd show up alone? Yes. 5 out of 10. Average score is a very middle of the road 20 for the little guys. Rockstar Bonnie. I love Rockstar Foxy. This is a known fact, but frankly the rest of the Rockstars don't really have much going for them. They were intended by Scott to look like a low-effort rebrand of the original cast, and Rockstar Bonnie is no exception. They are made to look a little below average, and by golly they do. 4 out of 10 on aesthetics. How about lore? I'm thinking it over, and I think the Rockstars are the least lore-important band. Period. The only interesting lore I can think of around the Rockstars is since Lefty is a Rockstar and Lefty looks like Carney, the Rockstars might be an older band than we thought? I mean, it's a fun enough question, but there's no weight or narrative significance to finding the answer at this point in the franchise. 1 out of 10. Star quality. For the first time in this whole ranking, we actually have an extremely concrete answer to how much star quality a bunny has, because Pizza Sim provides us in-game statistics on how well an item does in the pizzeria. On an in-game scale of 9, Rockstar Bonnie provides no atmosphere or health and safety, but has a 7 in entertainment and a 1 in liability risk. Does that mean he deserves a 7 on our scale? Definitely not. Rockstar Bonnie gets a 7 against the other potential purchases of Pizzeria Simulator, but if you're putting him up against Classic Bonnie's success, Glamrock Bonnie's enduring legacy in the hearts of the children of the Pizzaplex, no way he's netting a 7. We decided on a very comfortable 5 out of 10. And vibes. Would you hang out with this man? He sings, which is awesome, but he only sings, which is not awesome. Does his macabre poetry bring a certain something to social gatherings?
Why so blue? You know I've been true, and now I'll make slippers out of you.
Yes. I think it brings a 6.5 out of 10 to the party, leaving Rockstar Bonnie with a 16.5 total. Who's next? Yeah, I'm good.
Do we have to talk about this one? Springtrap is well named. If Yikes were a rabbit, this would be that rabbit. Definitely a downgrade from his predecessor, though he has been decaying for a while. Aesthetically, he is certainly rotten. His design isn't particularly threatening either, just off-putting and veering into goofy territory. I would have been content giving this guy a 0 until Candy reminded me that context matters. Within FNAF 6, especially during the salvage scene, Springtrap actually does have a sinister aura to him. The lighting shows off his decay without so much emphasis on the confusing cranium and otherwise overly cartoony appearance. Candy was still more generous than I was, giving him a 2, while I gave him a 1. Luckily for Springtrap, he's still William Afton, which means he's similarly lore relevant. Not as iconic as the original, but this is the Afton we get to see burn and told not to keep the devil waiting, which is one of my personal favorite lines in the series and one of the most memorable from the series overall. This earns him a solid 8 out of 10. Don't get too excited though, buddy, because for star quality, you get a flat line 0. Not even gonna bury the lead here. This guy sucks. The only reason he gets to step foot into a pizzeria is to be eradicated, and I can't even imagine a haunted house would want something like him in their attraction, much less anywhere else. His vibes aren't much better. He gets the same point Springtrap gets for having an interesting enough voice, but I would just catch the podcast highlights on TikTok or something. Springtrap scrapes by with an average score of 10.5. Now, while I'd love to move right on to Help Wanted, we do have to make sort of a detour. FNAF AR's Special Delivery is the official mobile game installment of the franchise. Or it was. You can't play it anymore, but when you could, it sure did come with a lot of skins and variations of FNAF rabbits. Since these are mainly aesthetic changes and none of them show up in any other game, it really doesn't make sense to rate them on the same level as the others. And while I would use Candy Bunny's method of rating out of 10, neither of us really played much, if any, FNAF AR. I could rate them on looks alone, but I honestly don't have an opinion on half of these guys. For that reason, Candy and I decided to just pick our favorites of the bunch, and I would give them some recognition. Candy's pick is Piranha PlushTrap. Honestly, this makes sense. It's a really clever take on PlushTrap's bitey nature, and his short stature makes it all the more apt. I could see a group of 5 of these little weirdos all fighting for scraps of food, or ankles, while eyeing each other as potential meals too. That being said, the aquatic nature of this little guy is reminding me of sea bonnies, so I guess they found their way into this video after all. My favorite out of the bunch is this guy. Clown Springtrap is genuinely freaky, and the big hammer evokes a sort of King Did-It energy that, as a Kirby fan, I can't help but get into. I honestly love the idea of putting the FNAF characters in clown attire, and the vintage style and red color palette they chose really gives off a ringmaster vibe. This look for Afton just works. It's also worth noting that he also appears in Fury's Rage, the beat-em-up side-scroller that preceded Security Breach. Now it's time to enter the modern era of FNAF rabbits, which also comes with its fair share of ups and downs. First up, we have a bunny so popular, he went viral.
Peak is back. So many iconic rabbits from here on out, but Glitchtrap, to me, has the same cryptic appeal as Shadow Bonnie.
I love this rabbit's design. He's creepy, but in a camp way. He kind of reminds me of Sam from Trick or Treat. His movements are so fluid, you're sure it's a man in a suit, but it's also as if the suit itself has come to life. His glowing purple eyes are hypnotizing, and he gives off more of a 70s aura than 80s, which makes him unique in comparison to the other rabbits in our list. The little details are just as eye-catching, from his outfit to his hand stitching. The handcrafted nature brings in so much intrigue. I also appreciate the atmosphere created by his incomplete form. This rabbit gets a 10 out of 10 in aesthetics. Glitchtrap's lore is just about as interesting. Similarly to Springtrap, he sets up the mystery for this new era of FNAF. What exactly is he? Agony? A man-made virus? Is he the Mimic's best approximation of Spring Bonnie, or is this truly the first iteration of William's character?
The lore of the Pizzaplex era of FNAF has had very troubled development, as we all know well from the Doco interview and also just, using our brains. And though Glitchtrap belongs to that modern era of FNAF, I think his lore was phenomenal. He's not only a spooky design, but the implications around his existence laid the groundwork for a really unsettling story to unfold. Though that story did not unfold smoothly, Glitchtrap himself, I think, is a model for what modern era FNAF lore should look like.
There's lots of fun speculation and theorizing to be had with this guy, and for that, he gets a 9 out of 10. And despite his looks being off-putting to us, when this character would have actually been around in the days of Fredbear's Family Diner and Fall Fest, he was one of the stars. Not as much as Fredbear, of course, but he was still a big deal. Now, fairly, if we're speaking purely about Glitchtrap as the virus, not a lot of potential there. But for what it's worth, he did kind of make himself the main character of Help Wanted, so he's got the drive for stardom. He's deserving of a solid 8 out of 10. Now, where Glitchtrap does stumble is in the vibes category. He doesn't talk, he's invasive, and I'm pretty sure he wants to hack into my brain. He does have some sick dance moves, but not really appropriate timing. 2 out of 10. Glitchtrap is quite the rabbit and a great start to the modern era of FNAF, ending on a final score of 29 out of 40 possible points. A contender for sure, but can he be beaten? Vanny? Kidding. Just because the games want to gloss over this tragic character doesn't mean we have to. In fact, I could talk about Vanny all day. But instead, I'll keep it to the ratings. Aesthetically, Vanny is a well thought out design. She looks like a cosplay, which is kind of Vanny's deal. She's doing the bidding of Glitchtrap and mimicking his look, but she uses scraps of fabric instead of one cohesive design. It really speaks to the conflicted nature of her character. Her eyes glowing red is such a great way to help her stand out in darker areas of the game and makes her look more sinister. And I appreciate how she follows the through line of having that 70s aesthetic. She is, of course, a copycat, so it feels wrong giving her the full 10 points. A 9.5 it is. It might surprise you, but Candy and I scored Vanny pretty high on lore, despite Steel Wool doing her so dirty. Sure, Vanny content has been cut time and time again, but isn't that part of what makes her so interesting to talk about? With all her strange connections to Elizabeth Afton, having a father named Bill A., the controversy over whether Vanny and Vanessa are even the same person, even the way she's following Glitchtrap but then destroys him in Help Wanted 2. Not to mention that Fast technicians wore Vanny masks regularly enough that they have a poster reminding them to take them off. She's weird, in a good way, I think. All I know is, despite the questionable execution of her character, Vanny's got lore. 7 out of 10. To me, star quality is the part of Vanny that's hard to parse through. I mean, sure, the fans of FNAF love her, but that's within the context of her being Vanessa and her internal conflicts. As just a mascot character in a pizzeria or some other attraction, she doesn't have a lot of character lore. Bonnie plays the guitar, Freddy sings, Chica loves to eat. The staple animatronics all have a little something. Vanny carries a knife. Oh right, she doesn't even do that anymore. Vanny is just kind of Vanny. Maybe she'd have luck at Six Flags? Here's what I'll say for Vanny. She's more than capable of garnering a following, just maybe not on a main character level. 6 out of 10. On the subject of vibes, Vanny gives me great ones. Would I be your best friend? No. And Candy agrees, but is not as charitable as I am when it comes to this bunny.
That's fair. You can be at a 9, but I think I'm actually going to put her all the way down at a 7 because I think she'd kill me.
Yeah, that's a fair point. But at least she's an actual living human, unlike the other contenders, so I could genuinely see myself hanging out and having real conversations with her. Would those conversations be unhinged? Possibly, but they'd be interesting nonetheless, and you don't have to be someone's friend to say you like their vibes. Candy settled on an understandable 7, whereas I went right to 9. What can I say? I love a gal that can sew, has a good fashion sense, plays games, and goes to therapy. Vanny is sporting a high score too, with a total of 30.5 out of 40 points. But of course, Vanny was not the only bunny revealed during Security Breach, was she? That's right, it's time to talk about this guy. I won't keep us long, especially considering this was Candy's immediate reaction to seeing him in my slideshow. Unfortunately,
0! 0, the necessity makes us out. Loser. Ugly. Bad lore, ugly, yucky, no vibes. Not invited to the party.
It's pretty obvious this controversial figure isn't making it high on our list. In fact, he's really only above Nightmare Bonnie on a technicality. Burntrap's aesthetics are the only category Candy even gave him the time of day. And, I mean, he's creepy, especially in the context of his reveal cutscene. I genuinely think he's cool, but he's also Afton again, but without any personality. In that respect, he's fairly generic. A 3 from Candy and a 4 from me. And here's the thing, I have a confession to make. I never had a problem with Burntrap in the lore. Call me a simpleton, but I didn't hate the idea of Vanny bringing Afton back from the dead. But I'm gonna be objective here. This wasn't Scott's vision. This guy wasn't ever supposed to move, and he's been largely abandoned since. He was literally introduced, taken by the tangle, and never seen again. I give him 1 point of lore for being a good argument for Remnantplex theory, since he seems to have been revived by one of the charging pods. As for star quality, meh. I could see him being featured at a haunted house, but not memorable. 1 point. And vibes, dude kinda gives nothing, unfortunately. I follow the same rule as the other Afton iterations because he does have a cool voice. We just only hear it in the first trailer. Overall, Burntrap earns a pathetic 5 points, technically tied with Nightmare Bonnie for our lowest spot. But I did personally score Burntrap higher than Nightmare with a 7 versus a 5, so I'm giving him the second to last spot. Don't say I never did anything for you, Bernie. And with that, We move on to our final bunnies. This guy is he a guy? He's got mask features, but it's not like, right, who cares? It's a rabbit. MXES is weird. He's a security system mascot? He's an entity. All that confusion about him aside, he looks cool. At the very least, he isn't whatever this is. I like him, and Candy agrees his aesthetics are electric. His unique design definitely sets him apart from the other rabbits, and I love how he looks like a digital specter. And if you know me, you know my favorite part about MXES is his hands. 9 out of 10. Lore-wise, this dude is shrouded in mystery, which I think is really fun. But it's not like there's much to speculate on at this point. He was clearly created to keep the Mimic locked away, and even though we don't know exactly what MXES stands for, we know what he doesn't stand for, and that's little kids disarming security nodes. He has potential, but we'll have to wait until the next game to theorize further. I gave him a 5, and Candy gave him an extra half point for potential. Star quality. He's a digital entity with a pretty intimidating aura. And it isn't like he acts like he wants to be a star either. MXES is content to act as a pixelated security guard. Candy and I originally gave this guy a 2, but thinking about it, I actually think he's only a 1. His only potential is in a VR-based horror attraction, and I'm not even sure that counts. Luckily, I make the rules. Lastly, vibes. Look. He's not giving inviting, and I'm an anxious person. I'm not approaching this bunny for conversation. But I'm not mad at his presence either. He's not a bad guy.
He's as much of a bad guy as a locked door.
Exactly. He's running security for the function. He's not there to be my friend. He's there to keep out the riffraff. Sure, he's scary, but the good kind of scary. Candy's giving a 3.5, and I'm giving an even 4. With that, this antivirus soft hair gets an average total of 19.5. Now, because this next rabbit was technically introduced in Security Breach, you might think we forgot him, but we didn't, because I think his true reveal was in Ruin. Hope you've got time to spare. It's
Glamrock Bonnie. Here's a question for you. This is technically a ruined Glamrock Bonnie. We distinguish the Glamrocks proper from the shattered Glamrocks and from the ruined Glamrocks, and yet when I want to rank this guy, I want to rank him off of his Glamrock proper design, which we don't actually see and we just have some 2D art of. Is that okay? Well, pity you couldn't answer that question before this video came out, because I'm going to go ahead and do what I want. Aesthetics, the Glamrocks have it. They have it. Look at this guy. Leg warmers, headband, groovy guitar, this weird collar, and earring. He's teal. But what absolutely sells me is the fingerless gloves. Wow. But you know what? For some reason, I think his face on the Ruin model is a little weird. It might be the tiny triangle of teeth. I'm not sure. 9 out of 10. The lore. The mystery of what happened to Glamrock Bonnie is one of my favorite kinds of lore. It's just a lot of fun to think about. It's not the death order. It doesn't change everything. It's just a good mystery that gets under your skin. It made us think about the wider story without hinging the whole plot on an unanswerable question. But Glamrock Bonnie's lore is pretty brief. 7 out of 10. I think Glamrock Bonnie had star quality. When he went missing and Fazbear tried to switch him out with Monty real quick, the kids kept asking where Bonnie went. I think Glamrock Bonnie actually might have been my favorite Glamrock if he hadn't been taken out with a bowling ball. I gave him an 8.5. But Nervous pointed out that in VIP, Glammy B's attraction is described as not being that fun, so she bumped him down to a 7. And vibes? 10 out of 10. Okay, we don't see that much of Glamrock Bonnie's personality, but let's do a little speculation. First of all, he's Glamrock Freddy's best friend, and Glamrock Freddy is such an absolute delight. If he's got Freddy's trust, then he's got mine. And second of all, Glamrock Bonnie is potentially the only Glamrock who was taken out of commission early enough in the timeline that he has no dangerous version. And finally, he looks not only like he's so cool, but also that he has like a really uplifting way of speaking that also makes you feel cool and good about yourself. Bring this man to the party. Actually, you know what? Throw this man the party. He deserves it. Glamrock Bonnie's overall average is a cool 34.
I couldn't agree more, Candy. This guy has got it all. The looks, the attitude, the unofficial LGBT plus representation. I just think he's neat. That brings us to the end of our rankings, but before we move on to the final scores, let's take a look at some honorable mentions.
Before before we reveal the cream of the crop, the bunnies on top, let's look at who scored the highest in each individual category. Withered Bonnie and Glitchtrap both got a perfect 10 out of 10 in aesthetics. According to this scientific and entirely unbiased study, we can conclude that spooky bunnies go the hardest. To no one's surprise, Springtrap is our 10 out of 10 lore bunny. Star quality is divisive. Nervous's Animatronics Got Talent winner is a three-way tie between Original Bonnie, Springtrap, and Glitchtrap, who all have an 8, but I gave Classic Bonnie a whole 2 points more for a perfect 10 out of 10, and I gave Glamrock Bonnie an 8.5. And finally, who do we want at our party? Withered Bonnie, Shadow Bonnie, and Glamrock Bonnie are the first we're inviting with perfect 10 out of 10s. If you can get all 3 bunnies at your bash, the aesthetics will be spooky and the vibes will be transcendent.
All right, let's reveal our top 3 rabbits. First up, Candy's top 3.
My top 3 surprised me. In third with 29.5 is Vanny. In second with 30.5 is Classic Bonnie. And first with a sweeping 34.5 is Glamrock Bonnie. Though Glamrock Bonnie topping the charts was no great surprise, I didn't expect number 2 or 3 because of my love for Withered Bonnie, Shadow Bonnie, and Glitchtrap. But each of them had a really low outlier score that held them back from meddling in this ranking. Instead, Vanny and Classic Bonnie kept a high standard over all 4 scores.
Meanwhile, my number 3 was Withered Bonnie. What a guy. Coming in second is Vanny, unsurprisingly, and in common with Candy, my number 1 is the teal icon himself, Glamrock Bonnie, which means overall, Glamrock Bonnie is the big winner of the day with 34 out of 40 points. He's followed by Vanny with 30.5, and coming in third with 29.25 points is the OG Bonnie. I couldn't imagine a better list.
At the end of the day, remember, this is just 2 scientists' opinions. And if you have a different ranking, then you're objectively wrong. This is science, and I'm a bunny, and therefore I cannot possibly be wrong.
For a franchise centered on a pizzeria with a bear mascot, FNAF sure does love its bunnies. In my opinion, they have produced some of the most iconic characters and designs in the franchise. And as rabbits are wont to do, I hope they keep on multiplying. Thank you all so much for watching, and an extra special thank you to today's guest, Candy Bunny.
And thank you for having me.
If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to her channel. I hear she has candy all day.
Candy, candy, candy.
This concludes Bunny Month, and I hope you all loved it as much as I did. As always, please like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to become a part of the nervous system. I upload videos every week and go live on Wednesdays and Fridays usually, but if you can't wait, there are videos on the screen right now just for you. Okay, bye!